By now, Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell have captivated the world with the deaths of their spouses and the disappearance of Lori's kids, JJ and Tylee. Their web of lies and spiritual beliefs only add to the made-for-Hollywood saga. The love story of the Arizona mother and an Idaho church visionary has murder, sex, and religion. I'm Kim Powell, and you're listening to True Crime Arizona, Lori Vallow's Deadly Delusions. Chapter 6, The Evidence. Let me be the first to address the hiatus of podcast episodes, brought on by the busy lives of local news journalists, but also by the document dump from the Chandler Police Department on this case. 24 gigabytes of data was recently released. We're talking body camera footage, hours and hours of interrogation room interviews, phone calls with detectives, and surveillance footage. There was also photos of evidence collected at scenes, and an 1,100-page police report including text messages with all the key players. There is so much information and detail in this evidence release that the next few podcast episodes will highlight different themes from the case. In this episode, we'll focus on Charles Vallow's death and how much evidence detectives had right away against Lori, Chad, and Alex. Could what happened in September of 2019 been prevented?
18, we got one subject down, apparent gunshot wounds in the chest.
As you might remember, Charles Vallow, Lori's husband, was shot and killed at a home in Chandler, Arizona on July 11, 2019. This seems to be the start of the downward spiral that is this entire case. Lori's brother, Alex Cox, shot Charles in what he claimed was self-defense. Body camera video from the scene showed Alex sitting on the curb outside of the house, dabbing his bleeding head with a rag. He said no one else was in the house. That's because Lori took her kids, Tylee and JJ, away from the house after the shooting happened. Lori said she took JJ, who is 7 years old and autistic, to school. And then she and Tylee, who is 17 years old, well, they came back to the scene and stood off to the side with their arms folded.
Hi, neighbor, sorry.
Hello, young lady. And let me just get your information. How old are you?
16.
16?
Alex, Tylee, and Lori were all taken to the Chandler Police Department for questioning. For the first time, we're seeing the video from the rooms where they were being questioned. So let's start with Lori's 55-minute interview.
Just take it, you're so smart. Let's just take it and see if you pass it. She passed it, like...
And got a really good score?
Yeah, she passed it with, like, college ready.
It's 9:42 in the morning, roughly 2 hours after her husband of more than a decade was killed in her home by her brother. Lori walked in bubbly, beaming over Tylee's grades as she takes a seat. As the questioning starts, she leans forward in her chair and sits up.
You can just kind of tell me kind of what happened. It sounds like some of this may have started last night or something along those lines.
Right.
So start where you think it makes the most sense.
Okay, so,
Right away, she brings up her separation from Charles. Their relationship had been rocky for quite some time. Charles filed for a divorce in February of that year and tried to get her committed for a mental health evaluation.
Lost her mind. I don't know how else to say it. We're LDS. She thinks she's a resurrected being and a God, and remember the 144,000. Jesus is coming next year. She said, "You're not Charles. I don't know who you are, what you did with Charles, but I can murder you now with my powers."
Leading up to July 11th, Lori and Charles were still at odds. Text messages between Lori and Charles released by Chandler Police show constant arguments between the once happy couple. On July 8th, Charles called Lori out for writing an email to Chad using his name, trying to get him to come to Arizona. Charles texted her, "Tell me why you used my name and fictitious email to send a BS email about a book I am having him ghostwrite for me. It's fraud and a lie. There's no other reason for it other than to get him to AZ and have an excuse for his wife." He also texted her saying she is, quote, "destroying people's lives." Charles threatened to go to Chad's wife, Tammy, with this information. Meanwhile, Lori was, quote, working on Hiplos with Chad and Alex's wife, Zulema. Chandler Police later determined that Hiplos was what they called Charles in the dark spirit that was inside of him. They being Chad, Lori, and Alex. But while Lori and her crew are casting out the spirits from Charles, or Hiplos, Charles is planning an intervention of his own with Lori's brother, Adam. They were planning on confronting Lori about her new religious beliefs that morning on July 11th. But we'll get back to those dark spirits and the intervention in a bit. First, let's listen to how Lori described what happened to the detective.
It's all these threats on my phone all the time, like whatever, all these things. And then he told me...
What kind of threats?
Just... You'd have to read them to see, but he's always mad at me, right?
Okay.
And he doesn't want a divorce, but I don't like him and don't want to deal with him, so that's just how it is.
Lori explains that Charles showed up at the house at 7:30 a.m., as planned, to take JJ to school. She said Charles's temper was unpredictable.
Then he came over in the morning and he's like banging on the door. I'm like, oh great, here we go, And I was just gonna be nice. I was just gonna be nice as possible. And I had JJ stuff all ready for school. And JJ was like, oh, Dad. And then he was like, Mommy, and like ran to me and was like holding me. He's like, you're not taking me to school. And I was like, it's okay, Dad, can just drive you to school. It's not a big deal. Just trying to make it whatever. He was just being real smirky and real like jerky, to me.
To Charles's surprise, Alex was there.
He had stayed with me last night because I was worried he was going to come over and cause trouble with me.
Okay.
And just wanted someone else there, like my brother there, because I trust my brother.
Lori said she told Charles to just leave and take JJ to school.
And I said, well, why don't you just go now? I don't want him in the house. I'm like, why don't you just go now and take him to Burger King because that's what he likes for breakfast. And he's very particular about food. Like, he wanted chicken fries.
So, she says Charles headed out the door with JJ.
So I guess he had left his phone on the counter.
So he initially left with the backpack and with JJ? And
so he put them in the car, in the driveway, and then he came back in. He came back in, and his phone was on the counter, and I had his phone. And he was like, giving me my phone, and I was like, why don't you show me your text that you've been texting, blah, blah, blah. Because he's like acting really weird, like he's plotting something against me. Like, I'm like, why are you even here? Like, what did you come here for?
Again, Charles had been texting Lori's brother, Adam, about some sort of intervention.
He was texting him on the phone when he first got to my house, and I'm like, why are you texting Adam? Like, do you even talk to him? Like, my other brother. And he's been telling me all these texts, like, you're going down, blah, 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 blah. He's blaming me for our marriage breaking up, and my niece getting divorced, and my friend getting divorced. He said, I'm a destroyer of families.
This is when the alleged argument starts. Lori said she wouldn't give Charles his phone back.
He was screaming at me, and I was kind of walking around the house with it, so he couldn't get it. He's like reaching for it and stuff like that. And so Tylee came out of her room upset, and she had a bat, and she told him to leave her mother alone.
Lori says once Charles started yelling at Tylee for coming at him with a bat, Alex stepped in. Lori says Alex grabbed him from behind.
They got into the thing, and he's hitting him with the bat, and they're on the ground, like grappling around or whatever. And then, it was all, and he was hitting him with the bat, like swinging the bat, back and forth, and they were kind of like on the ground, and I was like freaking out trying to go around, knowing JJ was in the car, right? And so then he got up and he had the bat like this towards me, and I was going around the other side to try to just get out of his range where he couldn't hit me.
Lori said she wanted the kids out of the way of what this fight was going to be.
He was a professional baseball player.
Okay.
So it wasn't a good idea for Tylee to get out of that.
Meanwhile, it turns out Lori was still in the house when the shot was fired. An unknown bit of information until now.
I was kind of turned around, and we were all right there in that room except for the kids had been outside by that time, and I heard the gunshot. And
so you heard the shot? Did you actually see the shot, or did you just hear it?
I had gone around to the kitchen to get away from him, and so back around. So I don't know if you went in the house.
I didn't, so I'm a little bit of a disadvantage.
Yeah, so I didn't see the shot. I heard it, and then I came back around and I saw that he was on the ground. I was freaking out.
Yeah.
And so I was just freaking out, and it just went into Mama. I'm like, I've got to go to get JJ to school. I've got to get to the kids. I just felt like I got to get to the kids. And so I just went outside and to see if they were in there okay. I didn't want them coming back in the house when all that was going on. He was trying to come in, and Tylee was like looking at me with like the crazy eyes, like what just happened. And I told her to get in the car and we're going to take JJ to school. And I just left.
Lori told the detective she and Alex were speechless after it happened, and they didn't say anything to each other before Lori left with the kids. Then he called her.
Yeah, he called me.
Okay.
And he said, "Are you taking JJ to school?" And I said, "Yeah, we need to call the police." And he said, "Okay."
Alex claimed to have called 911 after washing his hands at the sink, but the investigation proved otherwise. After hearing the gunshot and leaving the house, Lori, Tylee, and JJ went to Burger King. A timestamp on surveillance footage puts them there at 7:54 a.m. But Alex didn't call 911 until 8:36 a.m., a 42-minute delay.
Is there anything else that I didn't ask about or anything that we didn't cover that you think is important? I always ask that just because I wasn't there, and so we're going through something that happened a super small amount of time.
Yes. Can I step?
Yeah, go for it.
Just thinking.
If you need anything, let me know, okay?
As the detective left the room, Lori grabbed a tissue and dabbed her eyes. She took a deep breath and folded her arms. For the next 4 minutes, she sat with her eyes closed. Then she opens them, looks up, closes them again, and ever so slightly smirks before closing her eyes again and appearing to fall asleep. In the next room over, muffled by the walls, you can hear another interview.
Tylee.
Tylee had been sitting in the room by herself for about a half hour, fidgeting in her chair, humming, cracking her neck. After about 12 minutes, she started to break down and cry. But seconds later, she wiped her tears and took a deep breath. When the detective walked in, Tylee told her part of the story. She said she woke up around 7:50 to yelling outside of her door.
I immediately just jumped up and I grabbed my baseball bat and I opened the door, and it was my stepdad, outside the doorway, and then my uncle kind of in the doorway, and then I could hear my mom behind him. I just kind of heard yelling over everything. I don't know, I kind of just do that whenever things are like really loud. I kind of just like tune what people are saying out.
Tylee said she never really got along with Charles. She said Charles took her bat when she confronted him, and she fell down.
Do you know what happened inside of the house? Has your mom kind of explained it all to you?
I just kind of asked her, because I heard a noise, which I know what it was now, but it sounded like, because I knew that the baseball bat was in there, it sounded like someone took it and hit it really hard against the floor.
Okay. When did you go back in and get her purse?
After my mom came out.
Okay. So after you heard that loud noise?
Yeah.
Tylee says it all happened really fast.
Honestly, it feels like 2 seconds and 40 minutes at the same time.
She confirmed after Charles was shot, they indeed went to Burger King.
Breakfast for dinner and dinner for breakfast.
While Lori and Tylee are being interviewed by one detective, the shooter, Alex, was in another interrogation room. The small gash in his head in full view of the camera. He complained of nausea.
Do you want me to call paramedics, check you out, or?
No, I think it's more adrenaline than anything.
Gotcha. Do you have any medical issues that might be underlying that?
Yeah, I'm slightly overweight.
Yeah, okay, well.
A few minutes later, the questioning started.
Because kind of some of the information we got from patrol didn't really match up what Lori told us compared to... So walk me through what happened today.
He was following her and yelling, and then I got between them.
And he started advancing towards you?
Yes.
How many shots did you fire?
I don't know, a couple.
According to the police reports, Alex shot Charles twice, once in the abdomen, once in the chest. When investigators moved his body, they discovered the bullet to the chest went straight into the floor beneath Charles, meaning he was shot when he was already laying on the ground after being shot in the stomach. Again, Alex told detectives he went over to the sink to wash blood off his hands, and then he called 911.
How long ago did this happen?
A couple of minutes.
The dispatchers walked him through CPR.
Making sure his chest goes up between each compression.
In the police report, it shows that right away, police did not suspect Alex of being truthful. Not only was there a bullet in the ground beneath Charles, but first responders also reported to detectives they could tell Alex never actually started CPR. But Alex walked free that day.
Everybody's gut feeling is that, this was not self-protection from Al.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have spent the night. He shouldn't have taken that week off of work. I mean, when you think about it, it was literally planned out for this whole thing to happen. In my opinion.
Yeah. No, like I said, I have the same concern. So we're still actively investigating it and
okay.
going through it all.
In the days and weeks after the shooting, detectives interviewed friends and family, trying to prove that this was a setup.
Also, I've been working on this case on a daily basis, every day. I am actively working this case. I don't dispute, or I would not argue with you that I believe that Lori had something to do with this. What I need to be able to do is prove it to a jury as well.
Yeah, a reasonable doubt.
Adam, the last person who Charles texted, called Chandler Police with his concerns.
We're LDS, and so she started, I think, listening to podcasts and some people who were LDS and now have been excommunicated from our church.
Okay.
And so she started following them, and then she started saying some really weird things.
He says his sister started reading books about near-death experiences and listening to podcasts about 2 years ago. Since then, she felt she had powers and could see beyond the veil.
Some of those things were that she, talks to Jesus in the temple, and she's married to Moroni, and she's not married to Charles anymore, and that she has a higher priesthood than the rest of us. She talks about people having dark spirits that she can see, and she knows who has dark spirits and when there's dark spirits around. And because I told her that I thought those were alarming, and she goes, "You think I'm crazy, don't you?" And I was like, "I don't know if you're crazy, but none of that makes any sense to me." And after I told her that, she cut me off, and me and her were closer than anybody in the family.
The only person in the family who would talk to Adam was Charles. They both felt Lori needed mental help.
This is my brother and sister, and I love them with all my heart. But I'm telling you, there's something wrong about Lori and Alex and this belief that they have. And, Lori thinks that death is nothing.
All this preparing of people and all this other stuff is way outside of the LDS faith. And it seems almost cult-like. I mean, it's just bizarre.
Yeah, it's very, yes. There's a lot of bizarre behavior, the things that they say.
This conversation happened before Lori and the kids moved to Idaho to be closer to Chad Daybell. The Chandler Police evidence shows they were skeptical from the day of the shooting that it was not in self-defense. Chandler Police did not submit their findings to the Maricopa County Attorney's Office until almost 2 years later. And by that point, the damage was already done. This podcast is written and reported by Kim Powell. Edward Ayala is the producer-editor. True Crime Arizona, Lori Vallow, Deadly Delusions is a production of Arizona's Family, 3TV, CBS 5, and azfamily.com in Phoenix, Arizona.